Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Jana Vallabha Girivare Dhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivare Nandana Vajajana Ranjana Yasuda Nandana Vajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Chari Yamuna Tira Chari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivare Dhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivare Suranandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yasuranandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Prabhupada. Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Body. Choti. I want refreshing water, not hot water.
It's not so hot.
Харибал, харибал.
Excuse me. Every day I'm getting an update on Bhakti Vaibhava Swami's health, and it looks like an update is coming right now, but let me read it first. Oh, it's not an update on health. It's an offering. Okay.
But
Hare Krishna. I'll read it later. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksha Unminitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Garim Yad Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shanyavari Pastacha Satarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I ask the devotees to please be tolerant and patient. Very soon we'll be having a kirtan. It's not completely clear what Havi Prabhu has presented for us this evening. At least to me, it was described as a presentation. That's for the word you used. Is that proper? It could be. Whatever it is, I know it's going to be wonderful. So I have no doubt about that. And I thank you for coming and making that offering. I am just as eager to hear it as I'm sure everyone else is, because the devotees always feel great joy when you lead kirtan for the pleasure of Prabhupada, Krishna, and all the assembled Vaishnavas. So, I'm not going to speak long. I think devotees are expecting me to speak long. Anyways, but I'll say something. Niskolka slov.
a few words.
Может быть, много, посмотрим.
Maybe a lot, we'll see.
Я никогда не знаю.
I never know.
I've heard a lot of words spoken today, and they moved me. Maybe because I'm sentimental, I don't know. But what moves me is the mysterious ways that this Srila Prabhupada works. The verse was quoted by Draupadi Rani, wasn't it? Yasyad kahichid rajan puma vedad vihit sitam yad vijigyasya yuktam moyanti kavayopihi. Nobody can understand the plan of Lord Shri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. Prabhupada brings up an interesting point in that verse spoken by Bhishma Dev to Yudhishthira Maharaj, in which he was saying that sometimes it's very difficult to understand the Lord's plan. Sometimes we may even become resentful. Why is somebody making a plan about me and not telling me what it's all about first? Shouldn't I know? Tell me first, and then I'll tell you if I'm going to accept it or not. Of course, Bhishma Dev's words are spoken to Yudhishthira Maharaj because Yudhishthira Maharaj was lamenting that he was thinking the whole war had taken place simply to establish him as emperor. And, of course, Bhishma Dev's instructions were very enlightening, relevant, and revealing. Prabhupada raises the point in the commentary that even if we cannot understand the plan, at least we should be obedient to it. And if we're obedient to the plan, then ultimately we we can increase our own faith by seeing how Krishna's will manifests ultimately for the benefit of myself and for others involved. So we should try to be obedient. Thank you. And it's bringing that point up because I was saying that somehow it's difficult to understand what Srila Prabhupada's plan is. Of course, he was quite vocal
Конечно
during
же,
his manifest presence. And as I spoke about a couple of days ago, I think when I was speaking to the students who are graduating from the Mayapura Institute, I was citing Srila Prabhupada's concluding words to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he was making the point very clear that he's asking his disciples to assist him in establishing the Krishna consciousness movement. He was appealing in his completion of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that it be presented in a way that it would be very attractive to scholars, religionists, and philosophers throughout the world. And certainly he wanted his disciples to assist him in presenting Chaitanya Charitamrita to the world, which Prabhupada explained to be the postgraduate study of Srimad Bhagavatam. And as I was revealing to the devotees in that presentation that although it was the postgraduate study, Prabhupada was so keen that it be published very quickly because he wanted it out very quickly. And therefore, as already revealed in Prabhupada Lilamrita and from the memories of so many devotees who personally experienced and witnessed Srila Prabhupada's pushing, that the Chaitanya Charitamrita was published in 2 months' time. And for those of us who are on the east coast of the United States, who are not so much in tune with what was going on in the west coast where Bhaktivedanta Book Trust was situated, our pushing that we experienced was that Prabhupada wanted them printed, published quickly. He had them sent out to all the temples. In America, we were waiting very eagerly for Chaitanya Charitamrita to arrive in truckloads. And for us, it meant they have to be distributed. So as the Chaitanya Charitamritas were arriving by the truckload, we were taking him off the truck, stacking him in the temple, breaking open one case to read them, and then the next day we were out distributing them. Little did we understand the elevated content of Chaitanya Charitamrita at the time. But on the strength of our faith and Srila Prabhupada's desire, we were out in the parking lots, mainly filled with housewives,
no,
distributing Chaitanya Charitamritas. And we weren't asking ourselves, what's Srila Prabhupada's plan? We were just, Prabhupada had a plan. That's all we knew. And Chaitanya Charitamritas were piled up, stacked up in the temple. We had our book bags, and Prabhupada's plan was to get out there and distribute them. And we understood to be faithful to Srila Prabhupada's plan was in our best interest. We had an extra benefit at that time when we were distributing those books. The extra benefit is that we were told and we heard from Prabhupada's words that every book distributed were more bricks for building the temples that Prabhupada wanted established in India. So our meditation was distribute Prabhupada's books. He wants these books distributed widely. He wants us to study them as we try to do when we'd sneak off in the corners of the temple to our favorite hiding place and study them before we had to get out in the parking lots the following day. But we had the added benefit of hearing Srila Prabhupada's desire to establish temples in Mayapura and in Vrindavan and in Bombay. Prabhupada had a plan. Prabhupada always had a plan. That's one thing we learned in Prabhupada's presence. Prabhupada had a plan for making the world Krishna conscious, and he wanted his followers to surrender. That was his plan. And we loved it. We loved experiencing that surrender because it meant going deeper into understanding instructions Prabhupada was giving us in his books. He gave us instructions and he nourished us to follow them. And if we're able to simply be obedient to his plan, we get little glimpses of realizations of how kind, compassionate, and merciful Srila Prabhupada is. And how fortunate I am to be considered a part of his plan. I confess, I didn't really know what his plan was, except I knew he wanted to make the world Krishna conscious. A famous quote we would hear, which would resonate in our hearts and reverberate throughout the world, and we'd always discuss amongst ourselves, as Prabhupada said, that we could take over the world in 18 days. And then we heard that there was a certain condition. If you were surrendered, we could do it. So we understood we weren't sufficiently surrendered because 18 days passed and again and again and again, and we were still struggling to become Krishna conscious ourselves. But in those concluding words of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which we received and drank deeply as much as possible in 1975 when they were published, Prabhupada said that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to execute the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and to execute the order of my Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. That was Prabhupada's plan. And he very clearly stated it in his concluding words for Chaitanya Charitamrita. For his followers, of course, hearing those words, seeing that example, reverberating those instructions again and again in our hearts, we became very, very eager to somehow keep them there in our hearts so that they could remain fixed in our hearts and we could remember why we should remain a part of that plan. We saw Prabhupada, after the publication of Chaitanya Charitamrita, have many plans. For instance, in that same year, Srila Prabhupada made a plan to come to Boston, where I was serving. He saw the pictures of the temple that we had purchased in Back Bay, Boston. Beautiful location, prestigious Back Bay. Prabhupada was, the devotee who showed Prabhupada the picture of the building was making it point clear that it was a good catch. And Prabhupada said, I will go there next year. Of course, that next year was 1975. He definitely had a plan. I think many of you probably know the rest of the story. To make a long story short, Prabhupada was going from Toronto to Montreal, and his next stop was Boston. And I, who was formerly a carpenter before I came to Krishna consciousness, was requested to leave book distribution and to prepare Prabhupada's quarters for him upon his arrival in Boston. I spent many months working very hard, meditating on Prabhupada's lotus feet, meditating on everything, every aspect of the renovation that I was doing for his quarters. It's a beautiful building, oak all over the building, redwood, cherry wood in the front hall. I was sanding it. It was oak, but it had paint over it, and I stripped all the paint, and I sanded all the what do you call those things in the windows? I forget what they're called. But shutters in the windows, and I stained them, and I varnished them. I made an entry into the bathroom so Prabhupada wouldn't have to come out into the hallway. He could go directly into the bathroom from his room. Ram Roy knows these rooms. One of them was his closet that he lived in. That closet was renovated to be Prabhupada's closet where he could put his suitcase and hang his clothes. But many years later, it became Ram Roy's bedroom, living room, bhajan kutir. So of course, the bottom line is that Prabhupada had a plan to visit. I had a plan to receive Prabhupada in the room that I fixed up for him. And he got a telex, I believe, when he was in Toronto from India, that Indira Gandhi was ready to meet with him, and Prabhupada was very, very eager for that meeting. And Prabhupada quickly went to Montreal and spent just a few hours there the next day and was on a flight that night to India. And Prabhupada never saw the room. He never saw the temple. Never saw anything that we all were doing to prepare for, because 76, he went someplace else, and 77, we know where Prabhupada was for most of the year. If fathers went, he went west. He went in 1977 was London. Otherwise, he was at the Kumbh Mela, and then he went to Bhubaneswar, and then he went to many other places in India. So we have our plans. Krishna has his plans. Prabhupada had his plans. We just have to be ready to be surrendered and be obedient to whatever his wishes are. Of course, I learned something very important that year, that if one performs the service in the right consciousness, the spiritual master will accept it, because it's the consciousness that he's most interested in. And that's the real fruit. Just as Krishna says, the real fruit, real interest I have in what you offer to me is your bhakti, is your love. Even if it's something but appears to be as insignificant as a leaf or flower or fruit or water, it becomes immediately significant when the love is there. I learned a lot that year from Prabhupada. Sometimes devotees may think, okay, I didn't speak to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada spoke to me there. Taught me what it was meant to always remember that I'm a servant. Taught me the meaning of the verse, the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that in all activities just depend upon me and work always under my protection. All activities, in such devotional service, you should be fully conscious of me. If you are conscious of me and don't act through false ego, if you are not conscious of me and act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So whatever service we perform, we should perform it in the right consciousness. This is for someone else's pleasure. It's not for mine. And I have to confess that sometimes I would forget that this is for Prabhupada's pleasure. When I was fixing those quarters, I was thinking that Prabhupada comes, and certainly I'm sure I'll be able to get in the room. And the temple president would introduce me, Srila Prabhupada, this is Naranjana Das. He fixed your quarters for you. But as they say in Russian, ni получилось.
As the saying goes, it didn't work.
Didn't happen. Neither работает. So nobody can understand the plan of the Lord. Nobody can understand the plan of Srila Prabhupada. But he wants us to surrender. And sometimes that surrender can be a very bitter pill. Sometimes it's so difficult. And we ask ourselves the question, is this what Prabhupada really wants me to do? And sometimes I find myself sitting here listening to this glorification and asking myself, is this what Srila Prabhupada really wants me to do? I have to convince myself that somehow, some way, Prabhupada wants me to do it, but I have to do it in the right consciousness. This is all just an introduction to a couple of verses I wanted to share with you. But don't worry, it won't be much longer. I was reading these verses the other day, and it's Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's Sanatana Goswami. It's actually teachings to Sanatana Goswami. It's the end of the chapter of life's ultimate goal. As many of you probably know, I am very intrigued, mystified, awestruck, overwhelmed by Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Srila Sanatana Goswami. For me, it's a very mystical experience. As I read Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and as I prepare to speak on the topic, it's just amazing, his genius. What has overwhelmed me so much is how much Srimad Bhagavatam is in is in Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita. I've been speaking on this topic for those who've been listening to my classes lately. I keep on, as I'm preparing to read some of these verses in the first volume of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, again and again and again and again and again, I'm just seeing, this is Bhagavatam. It's Brihad Bhagavatam. And the most wonderful thing is I'm reading Brihad Bhagavatamrita and seeing Bhagavatam there, it's bringing me back to Srimad Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's purports. And I'm just like, my God. I'm seeing Bhagavatam, which I've read, from a whole new perspective. Because many times devotees have asked us the question, I don't see a story in Bhagavatam about Narada Muni traveling to the different planets. And where's that in Bhagavatam? How is that Srimad Bhagavatam? How is it connected? And how is Gopakumar connected? Is Gopakumar just a story? Something Sanatana Goswami just made up to introduce us to something that was, beyond our understanding? Anyways, I could go into the mysteries of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. I mean, it's very mystical. But that's another topic for another time. That's really what I don't really so much want to speak about tonight, as much as I would like to. But I'm talking about Sanatana Goswami. Because Sanatana Goswami, and what was his qualification as he presents himself for revealing Brihad Bhagavatamrita? How is it that his genius, of course, was so wonderfully presented in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but at the same time, he was an instrument in the hands of the Lord. In other words, Lord Chaitanya was acting through him as an instrument, and yet we're calling him a genius. Oh, if he's an instrument, he's an instrument. How is he a genius? In fact, it's understood that Srila Sanatana Goswami, he wrote his commentary on Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Because it's very unusual for an author to write his own commentary on his own work. But Srila Sanatana Goswami was thinking, I didn't write this, Krishna wrote it. Krishna was simply holding my pen, holding my hand, the pen in my hand, and he was simply, everything was by his will, manifesting by his desire. He wrote a commentary on Brihad Bhagavatamrita because he didn't write Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And yet we understand that he was begging for the qualification to execute Lord Chaitanya's instructions. And Lord Chaitanya, one of the instructions he gave him that is he wanted to write transcendental literatures. Of course, he also wanted him to excavate places of Krishna's pastimes. He also wanted him to teach renunciation. In fact, when Sanatana Goswami was ready to give up his body under the wheel of the Jagannath chariot, Lord Chaitanya came to him and said, "No, I'm sorry. You gave that body to me. I have many plans for that body. So you've already given it to me, so you can't take it back." Anyways, Lord Chaitanya gave, for 2 months, he gave instructions to Srila Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi. He gave instructions about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana Tattva. And at the end of the chapter of life's ultimate goal, Srila Sanatana Goswami presents himself to Lord Chaitanya. And he says that, "My dear Lord, I'm a very low-born person. Indeed, I am a servant to low-born people. Therefore, I am very, very downtrodden. Nonetheless, you have taught me conclusions unknown even to Lord Brahma." Sanatana Goswami is presenting himself in this way. Of course, we know that he's feeling this way. He's not just pretending to be this way for our benefit. He's actually feeling this way. Very low-born. Very, very downtrodden. Of course, we know at the beginning, when he first approached Lord Chaitanya, he says, I don't even know who I am. People say that I'm very learned, I'm a scholar, I could speak so many languages, but I don't even know who I am. Tell me, please, tell me, who am I? And now after hearing this, everything from the lips of Lord Chaitanya, he's saying that you've taught me conclusions unknown even to Lord Brahma. Of course, we could expand on that also. Because he taught him the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes in Braj, which are a mystery to Lord Brahma. He cannot understand. And then the next verse he says, "The conclusions that you have told me are the ocean of the ambrosia of truth. My mind is unable to approach even a drop of that ocean. If you want to make a lame man like me dance, kindly bestow your transcendental blessings by placing your lotus feet on my head." So Sanatana Goswami is begging for the blessing. He's presenting himself as a lame man, low-born, downtrodden, unqualified. But you want me to do something. We have to learn from this example. There's something to be learned by our acharyas. As we said, Sanatana Goswami wasn't just thinking that I'll speak this way for the benefit of others. In his deep humility, he was thinking that way. As we know, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, when they came before Lord Chaitanya with blades of straw between their teeth, Lord Chaitanya picked them up in embrace and says, your humility is breaking my heart. That's how they're thinking. So Sanatana Goswami says, "Now will you please tell me?" And what is he asking Lord Chaitanya to tell him? He's asking Lord Chaitanya, "Let whatever I have instructed all be fully manifested unto you. By blessing me in this way, you will give me strength to describe all this." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then placed his hand on Sanatana Goswami's head and blessed him, saying, "Let all these instructions be manifested to you." In other words, we see that our powerful acharyas were blessed, empowered, because they're always ready to execute the will of their worshipful Lord. feeling themselves to be unqualified. Rupa Goswami, Sri Rupa Hridaye Prabhu Sakti Sancharila Savatattva Nirupani Karire Parchila. By entering into the heart of Rupa Goswami, Lord Chaitanya revealed all the truths of Vedic wisdom within his heart and made him a fully realized soul whose decisions were all completely in accord with the conclusions of the Vedic conclusions. We have to pray. As I said before, I ask myself, what am I doing here? What qualification do I have to accept this praise? I have to pray. I have to remember. Prabhupada has a plan. We didn't know that plan. Some people say Prabhupada hid this plan. Some people say Prabhupada had that plan. I say I don't understand Prabhupada's plan. But let me be obedient to his plan. If I can remember this, then I hope someday he may remember me. I don't know. I don't feel qualified to sit here. I don't feel qualified for so many things. And it's not just humility, please. It's a fact. I know how unqualified I am. But I know that whatever lack of qualification I can have, or I do have, I know Prabhupada is ready to help a soul surrender to him. And I simply pray that he will accept this service as an offering to his lotus feet. Thank you. Hare Krishna.